Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the Law Careers Net podcast. You're listening to Commercial Connect, our podcast mini-series where we run through top trending commercial issues. I'm Ellie and I'm a Senior Content and Engagement Coordinator, and in this episode I'm speaking to my colleague Dimitar about some recent commercial news stories we think aspiring lawyers should know about. As we like to remind you, this is for your benefit. We really want you to use this as an opportunity to build that all-important commercial awareness. So have a think about these news stories and think about how might they impact law firms and their clients. Is there a story you're particularly interested in that you can go on to research further? Okay, let's get started. So the first story is related to oil prices. Dimitar, can you tell us more?
Yeah, so Shell's profits have surged in the first 3 months of the year after oil prices increased sharply following the outbreak of the US-Israel war with Iran. The oil giant reported first quarter profits of $6.92 billion, beating analysts' expectations and up from $5.5 billion a year earlier. Before the conflict, Brent crude traded at around $73 a barrel, later peaking above $120. Shell chief executive said, Shell delivered strong results enabled by a relentless focus on operational performance in a quarter marked by unprecedented disruption in global energy markets. Meanwhile, rival firm BP also reported that its profits more than doubled over the same period. Environmental groups have been quite critical of the increase in profits, with climate campaigner Friends of the Earth Danny Gross stating, once again, fossil fuel giants are pocketing monstrous profits while drivers are being squeezed at the petrol pump and households are set to pay higher energy bills. The answer is clear: strengthen the windfall tax on these indefensible profits and break our dependence on fossil fuels by powering our economy with homegrown renewables.
Thanks, Dimitar. And as the environmental groups have commented on, those rising oil prices are impacting the cost of living crisis directly here in the UK. There's been some recent conversation on cutting speed limits to help protect consumers. Could you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so the Institute for Public Policy Research, or the IPPR, has argued that Britain should cut speed limits to help protect consumers from rising fuel costs linked to the Iran war. The think tank said capping speeds at 20 miles per hour in towns and cities and 60 miles per hour on motorways would reduce the fuel demand and ease pressures from higher oil prices caused by the conflict. The IPPR also urged ministers to temporarily cut fuel duty by 10p and introduce a new energy price cap of £2,000 a year. In addition, it warned that inflation could peak at 5.8% if no action is taken. Senior economist at the IPPR, William Ellis, said, the UK cannot afford to sit back and let another energy shock drive up inflation and damage the economy. The UK economy and public finances are expected to take a significant hit from the Iran conflict, regardless of whether the government intervenes. The think tank argued that lower speed limits would also improve road safety and encourage walking and cycling, and should be packaged with advice on how to drive more efficiently alongside recommendations for increased home working and carpooling.
Thanks, Dimitar. And while policymakers debate on how to respond, uncertainty is also weighing quite heavily on the UK's high street. Could you tell us more?
Yeah, so up to 150 former WH Smith High Street stores are likely to close, placing thousands of jobs at risk after their new owner outlined a radical restructuring plan. Modella Capital, which bought the 180-store chain for £76 million last year and rebranded it as TJ Jones, cited weak consumer spending as it saw major rent concessions from landlords. Modella is seeking 100% rent holidays on about 100 outlets and 75% rent reductions on 100 more for a year, followed by cuts between 15% and 75%. 8 of the remaining 450 stores will close immediately, while the other stores could also close if landlords refuse the proposals, with staff told that between 100 and 150 sites are at risk. Modella's comment was, weak consumer spending and cost of living pressures, combined with rising operating costs as a direct result of government policy and recent geopolitical events, have meant that the company as a whole has remained loss-making.
But not all retail news this week is about contraction. Some companies are pushing ahead with new ways of doing business, such as Amazon.
That's true. Amazon has become the first retailer in the UK to launch a drone delivery service, beginning with a limited rollout in Darlington, County Durham. The service delivers packages weighing under £5 or 2.2 kilograms within a 7.5-mile radius or 12 kilometers of Amazon's local fulfillment center. Items include everyday goods such as beauty products, batteries, and cables. Deliveries are currently completed within 2 hours in the UK, with a maximum of 10 flights an hour or up to 100 deliveries per weekday. Amazon said the launch follows more than a decade of development and reflects demand for faster deliveries. However, Dr. Anna Jackman of the University of Reading cautioned that expansion may be difficult. A lot of our demands for delivery services are in urban centres. They're very densely populated, very congested, and the reality is drone deliveries don't work well in high-rise buildings.
Thanks so much for those summaries, Dimitar. Lots of interesting and still developing news stories for aspiring lawyers to start researching. There's also plenty of other great resources to help you start building your commercial awareness on Law Careers Net. Dimitar, could you let us know a couple?
As a first point, I'd highly recommend you check out Law Careers Net's Commercial Awareness Hub for all the latest commercial news content, advice on how to actually develop commercial awareness and then apply it. For example, we have our Wrestle with Pestle series, an analysis technique, which is a super useful tool to break down and understand commercial awareness, such as the ones we discussed today, in greater detail. It helps you to grasp the broader context in which businesses operate, and we have a range of examples on our LCN Says section that you should check out and have a go at writing one yourself at some point as well. Also, do check out our commercial questions, which are weekly articles from law firms designed to get you thinking commercially. For example, our latest one is by Devonshire's on the Employment Rights Act 2025 and the rise of union access rights.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing. We'll pop the links to the resources you just mentioned in the podcast description. And please do remember to visit the Commercial Awareness Hub on Law Careers Net for more. We'll see you next time. Thank you.